Rude customer thought he could bully her before closing, until the mafia boss in the back stepped forward. The clock above the counter blinked 9:50 p.m., its tired blue digits flickering like they were ready to give up, just like Lena was. She stood behind the register, shoulders aching from 9 hours on her feet, eyelids heavy, nerves stretched thin. 10 more minutes and she could lock the doors, count the drawer, and drag herself home to her silent apartment. The store was empty. Quiet. Almost peaceful. Almost. She wiped the counter for the third time just to stay awake. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, cold, buzzing, relentless. The refrigerators along the back wall clicked on again, filling the air with their low mechanical drone. And that's when she heard the soft footstep. A man stood near the dairy section. He'd been there for a few minutes, longer than most customers ever stayed at this hour, studying the shelves like he wasn't in a rush to be anywhere. His clothes were clean but worn, the edges frayed, his boots scuffed and well-used. He moved with a slow, deliberate calm that didn't match the exhaustion in his eyes. Lena barely glanced at him at first. Just another late-night shopper. Then his phone buzzed. He answered quietly. "Hey, kiddo." His tone softened instantly. A child's voice chirped through the phone, excited, young. Lena couldn't hear the words, only the warmth they carried. "Yeah, I'm almost done," the man, Jack Moretti, said softly. 15 more minutes. Then I'll come get you." He smiled. A real smile. Tired, but genuine. Something about it tugged at her chest before she could stop herself. He hung up, grabbed a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk, and turned toward the front. Lena forced a smile, but her own exhaustion was weighing down her ribs like sandbags. She opened her mouth to greet him. The door slammed open with a sharp chime. A different man walked in. Tall. Expensive clothes. Polished shoes. A jaw set in irritation like it was carved there permanently. His eyes scanned the store with immediate annoyance, like simply existing in a convenience store offended him. Lena's stomach tightened. She recognized the type. The worst kind to deal with this close to closing. He didn't even acknowledge her as he strode past. Just a dismissive glance. Nothing more. Great. The rude ones always came at the end. Jack Moretti paused a few feet from the counter, eyes flicking to the newcomer, assessing him with a quiet intensity. Then he looked back to Lena and offered the slightest nod, as if to say he wasn't in a hurry. She wasn't alone. She didn't know why that mattered so much. The rude customer, Jack, unfortunately sharing the same name as the man watching silently from the dairy aisle, wandered down the snack aisle, picking things up only to toss them back like the shelves offended him too. The clock ticked to 9:53 p.m. 7 minutes. Just 7 minutes and this shift would be over. Finally, he returned to the counter, slapping down a soda and a bag of chips loud enough to make her flinch. Lena forced her voice steady. "Good evening." He didn't look at her. Didn't acknowledge her at all. She scanned the items. "That'll be $4.75. Now he looked at her. A slow turn of his head, eyes cold and cutting. "You always this slow?" Her heart dipped. She'd scanned 2 items. 5 seconds at most. I'm sorry," she said quietly. He gestured at the register like it personally offended him. "You heard me. You always take this long." Her cheeks heated, but she kept her voice level, professional. "No, sir. Just doing my job." He let out a dry laugh. "Your job." He handed her a $10 bill. She took it, fingers trembling despite her best effort, and counted out the change, twice, before setting it on the counter. $5.25 is your change." "Thank you." He stared at the coins. "You gave me the wrong change." Her stomach dropped. I double-checked." He leaned forward, voice dropping into something sharp and dangerous. So you're calling me a liar? Her breath hitched. Her throat tightened. Words tangled inside her. No, sir. I just... She counted again, out loud. Hands shaking. Voice barely audible. 5.25. She placed the money back on the counter. It was right. She knew it was right. He stared at her, long enough to make her heart pound painfully in her chest, then swept the change into his hand and turned away without another word. Lena let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Jack Moretti stepped up quietly, placing his milk and bread on the counter. His voice was gentle, unexpectedly so. Just these. She scanned them, grateful for the calm in his eyes. Grateful he wasn't like the other one. $6.15. He handed her a $20. Their fingers brushed, barely, and Lena felt a strange jolt run up her arm. Warm. Grounding. Completely out of place in this fluorescent-lit stress chamber. He accepted the change with a small nod, stepping aside, but not leaving. His eyes drifted toward the back of the store where the rude customer had disappeared. Watching. Waiting. Lena's pulse flickered. The clock hit 9:57. 3 more minutes. And then the worst happened. The rude customer came back, with a different soda, a different bag of chips, and slammed them onto the counter. Ring these up instead. Lena swallowed hard. It was going to be a very long 3 minutes. Lena stared at the new items he'd dumped on the counter. Her brain, already fogged with exhaustion, tried to catch up. "You want to return the others?" she asked. The man, Jack, the rude one, smiled. A slow, mocking curl of his lip. "No. I want you to ring these up. The others were expired." She blinked. They weren't. She knew they weren't. She checked every date in the store 2 days ago. But arguing with a man like him... Pointless. Dangerous. So she scanned them quietly. $4.90, she whispered. Jack tilted his head as if humoring a child. "You sure about that?" Lena checked the screen. Scanned correctly. "Yes, sir." He let out a theatrical sigh and shook his head. "Never mind. Don't want them anymore. Cancel it." Lena felt something inside her crack, not loudly, but sharply, like the thin snap of a twig under too much weight. She stared at him, then at the register, then back at him. "I'm sorry, sir," she said softly, "but I've already scanned them. If you don't want them, I'll have to process a return." He leaned forward, bracing himself on the counter until his face hovered inches from hers. "Then process it." His breath brushed her cheek. She forced herself not to recoil. Her hands moved on instinct, opening the return menu, trying not to fumble the buttons. But when she handed him the items back, her hands shook too visibly. Jack didn't take them. He just stared at her. "You're not very good at this," he said. "Are you?" Her eyes burned. She blinked hard, stared down at the counter so he wouldn't see the tear threatening to break loose. "I'm sorry you feel that way." He walked toward the door. Lena's spine softened, relief flooding her in one shaky exhale. But halfway there, he stopped. Turned. "Actually," he said, voice flat and cold, "I do want those. Ring them up again." Her lungs froze. She looked at the clock. 10 p.m. Closing time. "Yes, sir," she stammered. "I'm sorry, but we're closed. I need to. I'm still a customer." Jack stepped back toward her, jaw tight. "You can't close while I'm in here." Her mouth went dry. Her heartbeat stuttered. And then a shadow shifted from the side of the room. Jack Moretti stepped forward. Silent. Controlled. But there was something new in the air around him. Something heavier. Like the atmosphere tightened around his frame. He approached with calm, but his eyes... dark, focused, unmistakably dangerous. "She's done her job," he said quietly. "You've been here long enough. Let her close." Jack, the rude one, turned to face him, eyes narrowing. "And who the hell are you?" Jack Moretti didn't flinch. "Someone who thinks you should treat people with respect." The rude Jack barked out a humorless laugh. "Respect? Look at you. You look like someone who doesn't have a dollar to his name." He stepped closer, invading Moretti's space. "What are you, some wannabe hero?" Lena's chest seized. Moretti didn't move, didn't blink, but the room shifted around him. The hum of the refrigerators felt louder. The air seemed tighter. Even the lights buzzed in a strange rhythm. Because this man, this quiet, worn, soft-spoken man, did not look like a hero. He looked like someone who had done dangerous things and could do them again if pushed. He looked like someone who had nothing to prove. Jack scoffed and turned back to Lena. "Ring me up. Now." She looked at Moretti. He gave her a small nod. It was steadying, permission, protection. She took a breath and scanned the items again. $4.90. Jack threw a $5 bill on the counter, grabbed the bag, and walked toward the door. But he stopped again. Looked back at Moretti. "You think you're better than me?" Moretti met his gaze without a flicker of doubt. "I think you're having a bad night. We all do." He paused. "But that doesn't give you the right to ruin hers." The silence that followed felt like it stretched across the entire store. Finally, Jack huffed, shoved the door open, and stormed into the night. The door slammed shut behind him. All Lena could do was stand there, hands pressed flat against the counter to keep them from shaking. Her breath trembled out of her. Once. Twice. She couldn't speak. Jack Moretti turned toward her, expression softening the moment his eyes found her face. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, but she wasn't. Not even close. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't need to thank me," he replied. "You handled that better than most." Her eyes dropped to her trembling hands. Moretti picked up his bag of groceries and stepped toward the door. Before he left, he looked back at her. "Get home safe." Then he disappeared into the night. Lena stood alone under the buzzing lights, the clock now ticking past 10 o'clock. She thought it was over. She had no idea it hadn't even started. Lena locked the door, hands still shaking as the deadbolt clicked into place. The shift was over. The nightmare customer was gone. Jack Moretti, whoever he really was, had vanished into the night. All she had to do now was count the drawer, close up, and breathe. But as she walked back toward the register, the door rattled violently behind her. She jumped, then froze. Jack, the rude one, stood outside, yanking the handle like he could force the door open through sheer rage. His face was twisted with frustration, shadows carving hard lines across his features under the parking lot lights. Lena swallowed hard and stepped toward the glass. "We're closed," she called out, trying to sound firm. Her voice cracked anyway. Jack pointed at the sign taped to the window. "It says you close at 10. It's 10:02. You can't lock me out." "You already left," Lena said, pulse stuttering. "I locked up after." Jack's jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone and pressed it to the glass, the screen glowing bright. 10:02 p.m. "You locked the door while I was still shopping," he snapped. "You can't do that. That's against policy." Her breath quickened. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't locked him out. He did leave, but suddenly none of that felt like it mattered. She could see it in his eyes. He wanted a fight. He wanted her scared. He wanted control. "Open the door," he demanded. Lena didn't move. "If you don't," he said, lifting his phone higher, "I'm calling your manager." "You're done." Her heart stopped. She couldn't lose this job. Rent was due. Tuition deadline flashing on her phone. She needed every shift, every dollar. But opening the door meant letting an angry man inside with no one to witness what came next. Her fingers shook toward the lock. A voice cut through the cold night air. "She's telling the truth." Lena spun. Jack Moretti stood in the parking lot, a grocery bag in one hand, his posture relaxed, but his eyes? His eyes were lethal. He hadn't left. He'd been watching. Jack, the rude one, turned to him with a sneer. "You again." Moretti walked closer, not rushed, not rattled. His footsteps were calm, measured, the kind that made the air shift around him. "You left the store," Moretti said evenly. "She locked the door after you walked out." "I saw it." Jack scoffed. "Oh, so you're some kind of witness?" Moretti didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than words. Jack stepped toward him, closing the distance until they stood only a few feet apart. Jack puffed his chest, but next to Moretti's stillness, he looked like a man trying too hard to look powerful. "I think you're just some loser trying to play hero," Jack spat. "Look at you, buying milk and bread at 10 at night. Bet you don't even have a real job." Moretti's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened by a fraction. A millimeter. Enough to tell Lena, standing behind the glass, breath fogging the window, that the insult landed in a place the rude man couldn't understand. Moretti spoke softly. Too softly. "I'm not trying to be anything. I'm asking you to leave her alone." Jack barked a laugh. "Leave her alone? She's the one who locked me out. She doesn't know how to do her job." He lifted his phone. "I'm calling corporate." "You're going to regret this," he said, turning toward the store. Lena felt tears sting her eyes, her body pressed against the glass like she could disappear into it. She'd done everything right. But his voice, calm, confident, made it sound like it didn't matter. Her breaths came shallow and fast, panic tightening around her ribs. Moretti stepped forward again. "You're not calling anyone," he said. "Quiet. Deadly quiet. You're going to get in your car and leave." Jack whipped around. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Those two words held something: weight, threat, promise. A man who rarely repeated himself because people didn't force him to. Jack puffed up again. "You don't get to tell me what to do." Moretti's gaze sharpened. Not angry. Focused. Like he was calculating something. Deciding something. "You're being cruel," he said. "And you know it." For a split second, the world felt suspended in air. No hum, no buzz, no sound but the wind brushing across the pavement. Then Jack stepped closer, nose wrinkled in a cruel smile. "You want to talk about cruel? Look at your life. You're nothing. A nobody. And you think you can lecture me?" Inside the store, Lena couldn't take another second. She unlocked the door and stepped out, cold air slapping her cheeks. "Stop," she said, voice breaking. "Just stop." Both men turned. Jack's expression was unreadable. Moretti's eyes burned with something that softened at the sight of her: concern, fury, restraint. "I'm sorry if I upset you," she said to Jack, tears slipping out. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to close the store." Jack stared at her, then shook his head. "You know what? Forget it. I'm done with this place." Relief spilled through her. But then he stopped, turned, walked back toward her with his phone again. "No, actually, I'm not done. I'm calling your manager right now. And I'm going to make sure you get fired." Her knees nearly buckled. Moretti moved instantly, stepping between them like a wall of heat and danger. "Don't do this," he warned. Jack ignored him. The phone rang. Someone answered. And with a rehearsed, smooth voice, Jack began to lie. Lena felt the world tilt. And Jack Moretti's eyes turned dark enough to promise that the night was far from over. Jack, the rude one, shifted his tone instantly when the manager answered. Smooth. Polite. deceptively calm. "Hi, yes, I'd like to report an employee at the Maple Street location," he said, pacing a slow circle in the parking lot like a predator choosing its angle. "Very unprofessional. Very disrespectful. She locked me out while I was still shopping." Lena felt the words like blows. Every one. She hugged her arms to her chest, as if she could hold herself together by force. "I see," Mr. Hale's voice came faintly through the receiver. "Can you tell me what happened?" "Oh, absolutely," Jack lied without hesitation. "She gave me the wrong change, snapped at me, then locked the door early. I tried to explain, and she refused to help. Completely out of line." Lena's breath came shallow. She felt herself shrinking, like she had no mass, no voice, no power. Just a target. The word, terminated, hovered at the edges of her mind. But while Jack described her as incompetent, rude, unprofessional, Jack Moretti watched him with a stillness so sharp it might as well have been its own weapon. Jack finished his fabricated complaint. "I'd appreciate if you took this seriously. My name is Jack," he gave his full name, clearly proud of himself, "and I can be reached at this number." He hung up and offered Lena a satisfied smile. "You're done." Her vision blurred. Tears spilled over. She turned away, swallowing the sobs clawing at her throat. Jack walked back to his car, opened the door, then paused, looking back with a twisted expression. Something bitter. Something almost triumphant. Moretti's hands balled into fists at his sides. Lena sagged against the wall of the store, shaking. All the effort she'd put in, every shift, every double shift, every moment she forced herself to swallow unfairness, none of it mattered. One entitled liar could destroy it all. "He's lying," she whispered, voice shattered. "And no one's going to believe me." Moretti turned toward her. Slowly, calmly, controlled. But his eyes were hellfire contained in glass. "I believe you," he said. Her breath hitched. Something inside her wavered, almost broke, but in a different way this time. A softer way. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "He called Mr. Hale. I'm going to lose my job. I didn't even defend myself. I just froze." "You did everything right," Moretti said, stepping closer. His voice was low, steady, grounding. "You stayed calm. You stayed professional." She shook her head, tears falling again. "I didn't say anything back. I didn't fight." He tilted his head slightly, eyes roaming her face, not in judgment but understanding. "Not fighting back isn't weakness," he said. "Sometimes it takes more strength to stay still." Her breath trembled. The cold night pressed against her skin, but Moretti's presence radiated a warmth that steadied her bones. Then he pulled out his phone. "What are you doing?" Lena asked, voice fragile. "Fixing something." He found the store's number and called. It rang 3 times before the automated system answered. "Thank you for calling Maple Street Convenience Store." The beep sounded. Moretti's voice came through, deep and controlled. "Hi. My name is Jack Moretti. I was inside the store tonight around closing time. I witnessed a customer harass your employee, Lena. She handled the situation with professionalism and patience. The customer was being deliberately cruel. I'll give a full statement if needed." He left his number. Hung up. Lena stared at him, stunned. You didn't have to do that." Moretti looked at her, something soft, almost dangerous in its honesty, in his eyes. "Yes," he said. "I did." She didn't know what to say. Didn't know how one man, one stranger, could shift the weight on her chest so completely. "You should go home," he said gently. "It's late." She nodded. He walked beside her as she locked up, neither speaking. But the silence wasn't empty. It was charged. Alive. When they reached her car, she turned to him. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Moretti gave her a small, quiet smile. "You would have handled it without me," he said. She wasn't sure that was true. Not even close. But the warmth in his voice made her want to believe it. He walked to his own car, parked a few spaces away. Opened the door. Looked back one last time. "You're stronger than you think." Then he slid inside and drove away, tail lights disappearing into the night. Lena stood there long after he was gone, heart thudding unevenly. Something was shifting inside her, rearranging itself. Something she wasn't ready to name. The next afternoon, Lena sat in Mr. Hale's office, hands clenched tightly in her lap. She hadn't slept. Couldn't sit still. The security footage review was happening today. Mr. Hale looked up from his computer. I reviewed the footage from last night. Lena held her breath so tightly her lungs ached. You did nothing wrong, he said simply. The customer left the store. You locked up after. Everything was done by the book. Relief crashed through her so hard her eyes filled instantly. And, Mr. Hale added, I received a voicemail from a witness, Jack Moretti. His statement matches the footage exactly. Lena let out a shaky breath. He lifted his phone. I'm not in trouble. I'm calling corporate. No, Mr.
You're
Hale
going to
said,
regret this,
smiling
he
gently.
said,
Turning
you
toward
handled
the
yourself
store.
better
Lena
than most
felt
people
tears
would have.
sting her eyes.
I'm
Her
proud
body
of you.
pressed against the glass
Lena
like she could
wiped her
disappear
eyes.
into it. For the first time since last
everything
night,
right.
she felt her
But
spine
his voice,
straighten. Calm,
she
confident,
wasn't breaking.
made it sound
She'd
like it didn't matter.
survived.
Her
But the
breath
night
came
was
shallow
far from
and
done,
fast, surprising her.
Panic tightening
Lena stood
around her
behind the
ribs.
counter that evening.
Moretti
the store
stepped quiet
forward
again.
except for the soft hum
You're not
of the
calling
refrigerators.
anyone, he
Her
said.
hands still trembled
Quiet.
now and then.
Deadly
Tiny
quiet.
aftershocks of
You're
last
going to
night's
get in your
chaos.
car and
But there
leave.
was something steadier in
Jack
her chest
whipped
now.
around.
Something
Excuse
almost like
me.
pride.
You
Mr.
heard me.
Hale believed
Those
her.
two words
The
held
footage
something.
proved her
Wait.
right. Threat.
Jack Moretti
Promise.
stayed.
A man who rarely
She kept
repeated
replaying
himself
pieces of the
because
night,
people didn't
especially
force him
the
to.
way he looked at her.
Jack puffed
Dark
up again,
eyes
softening.
You
voice
don't get
deepening,
to tell me
like
what
he
to
spoke
do.
from a place he
Moretti's
rarely let himself
gaze
touch.
sharpened.
She
Not
hadn't
angry,
shaken that feeling
focused.
since. Like
At
he was
9:30
calculating
p.m.,
something.
the door chimed.
Deciding
Lena
something.
looked up.
You're being
and
cruel,
her heart
he
nearly
said.
dropped out of her
And
chest.
you know it.
Jack,
For a split
the rude
second,
one,
the world
walked
felt
in.
suspended in air. For a moment,
No hum,
her pulse
no
stuttered
buzz,
violently.
no sound but
she
the
felt
wind
her
brushing
entire
across
body
the
pavement.
pavement.
Ready
Then
for another
Jack
attack,
stepped closer,
another accusation,
nose wrinkled in a
another
cruel
attempt
smile.
to get her fired.
You want to
but
talk
he didn't
about
look
cruel.
the same. Look
His
at your
shoulders
life.
sagged.
You're nothing.
His face was
a
drawn.
nobody.
His
And
eyes
you think
were
you
hollow.
can lecture me?
He approached slowly,
Inside the store,
stopping a few
Lena
feet from the
couldn't
counter,
take another
like he
second.
wasn't sure he
She
deserved
unlocked
to come
the
closer.
door and stepped out.
I came to
cold
apologize,
air slapping her
he
cheeks.
said quietly.
Stop,
Lena
she
blinked,
said, voice breaking.
He looked down at his
Just
hands.
stop. His
Both
voice
men
cracked
turned.
on the next sentence.
Jack's expression
I
was
lost my
unreadable.
job yesterday.
Moretti's eyes
Found out
burned
right
with
something
before
that
I
softened
came in
at
here.
the sight of her.
I was
Concern,
angry,
fury,
and I took it
restraint.
out on you.
I'm
His
sorry if I
expression
upset
twisted,
you, she said to Jack,
That wasn't
tears
fair.
slipping out. Lena
I didn't
say
mean to.
anything. I just
She didn't
wanted to
trust her
close the
voice.
store. You didn't
Jack
deserve
stared
any
at
of
her,
that.
then
He
shook
continued.
his head.
You were just
You know
doing
what?
your job. Forget it.
And I made it
I'm
hell.
done with this
She
place.
had spent all night
Relief
hating
spilled
him.
through her.
But now,
then,
seeing him like this,
he stopped,
small,
turned,
unraveling, she
walked
realized
back
something.
toward her with his
He
phone
wasn't
again.
a monster.
No, actually,
he was a man
I'm not
drowning in
done.
his own storm.
I'm calling
and
your
he
manager
dragged her
right
into
now.
it.
And
I'm
I'm going
going
to
to
make
manager
sure
this
you
morning,
get fired,
he said.
Told
Her
him
knees
I lied.
nearly buckled.
Told him
Moretti
you did
moved
everything
instantly,
right.
stepping
His
between
throat
them like a
bobbed.
wall of heat
I
and
asked
danger.
him not to take any
Don't do
action
this,
against you,
he warned.
Her breath
Jack
hitched.
ignored him.
The
did.
phone rang.
He nodded.
Someone answered.
It was the least
and
I
with a
could
rehearsed,
do.
smooth
I'm
voice,
really sorry,
Jack
Lena.
began to lie.
I hope you can
Lena
forgive me
felt
someday.
the world tilt. She didn't
and Jack
speak
Moretti's
for
eyes
several
turned
moments.
dark enough to
Then,
promise that the
"Thank
night
you,"
was far
she
from
whispered.
over.
Jack, the
took
rude
courage
one,
to come
shifted
back.
his tone instantly
He gave a
when the
sad
manager
smile.
answered.
Not as
Smooth,
much courage as
polite,
it took for you to stand here
deceptively
last
calm.
night and keep trying to be
yes.
kind.
I'd like to
He
report an
turned to
employee
leave.
at the Maple
Take
Street
care of
location,
yourself,
he said
pacing
softly.
a slow circle
Lena
in the parking
watched
lot
him walk
like a
out,
predator choosing
feeling
its angle.
something in her chest
Very
uncoil,
unprofessional.
an anger she hadn't
Very
realized she'd been
disrespectful.
gripping so tightly.
She locked me out
A strange
while I was
calm
still
took its
shopping.
place. Lena
At
felt the words
9:45
like
p.m.,
blows. The door
Every
chimed
one.
again.
She
This
hugged
time,
her arms
the
to her
breath caught
chest,
in Lena's
as if she
throat
could
for
hold
a different
herself
reason.
together by force.
Jack Moretti
I
walked
see.
in. Mr.
The
Hale's
same worn
voice
jacket,
came faintly through
the
the
same
receiver.
tired boots.
Can you tell me
the
what
same
happened?
quiet intensity?
Oh,
But when he
absolutely.
saw her,
Jack
really
lied
saw
without
her,
hesitation.
his expression
She gave me
softened
the wrong
instantly.
change.
He
Snapped
carried
at
a
me,
small
then
paper
locked
bag.
the door early.
I forgot to
I
grab
tried
dinner,
to explain,
he said,
and she
almost
refused
sheepish.
to help.
Mind
Completely
if I get
out
a
of line.
sandwich?
Lena's
Lena
breath
laughed
came
softly,
shallow,
surprising
She felt
even
herself
herself.
shrinking, like
Go
she had
ahead.
no mass.
He grabbed
no
a
voice,
sandwich
no
and
power.
water, brought
Just
them to
a
the counter.
target. $6.20,
$6.20,
she
hovered
said.
at the edges
He
of her
handed her a
mind.
$10
But
bill.
while Jack described
she
her
gave
as
him the
incompetent,
change,
her
rude,
fingers brushed his
unprofessional.
again.
Jack
and the
Moretti
spark
was
watched
still
him
there,
with a stillness
maybe
so sharp
even
it
stronger.
might as well have been its
"You
own
doing
weapon."
okay?" Jack
he
finished
asked,
his
voice low.
fabricated complaint.
She nodded.
"I'd appreciate
"I'm better.
if you took this
Actually,
seriously. My
something
name is
happened
Jack."
tonight.
He gave his full
His
name,
brows
clearly
lifted,
proud of himself,
concern flickering
and I could
sharply
be reached
through
at
his
this number.
expression.
She told
He
him
hung up
about the
and
rude
offered
customer
Lena a
returning.
satisfied smile.
The apology.
"You're done."
The call to
Her
Mr.
vision
Hale.
blurred.
Moretti
Tears
listened without
spilled over.
interrupting. She
Eyes
turned away,
never leaving her
swallowing
face.
the sobs
"That
clawing
took
at her
guts,"
throat.
he said
Jack
after a
walked
moment.
back to his car,
Coming back
opened
like
the door,
that.
then paused,
It surprised
looking
me,
back with a
Lena
twisted
admitted.
expression. Moretti
Something
gave a
bitter.
faint smile.
Something
People
almost
surprise
triumphant.
you sometimes.
Moretti's hands
usually
balled into
in bad
fists
ways
at his sides.
but sometimes
Lena sagged against the
he
wall
stopped.
of the store.
His
shaking.
gaze dropped to
all
her
the
lips
effort
for
she
a
put in,
heartbeat. Every
a
shift,
charged,
every double
electric
shift,
heartbeat.
every moment she
In
forced
better
herself
ones,
to swallow unfairness.
her breath
None of it
trembled.
mattered.
"You
One
surprised
entitled
me,"
liar
Lena
could
said
destroy it
quietly.
all. His
"He's
smile
lying,"
deepened,
she
small
whispered,
but
voice
real.
shattered.
"Yeah, and no one's
Yeah,"
going to
she
believe me."
murmured.
Moretti
In the best
turned
way.
toward her.
The air between
Slowly,
them thickened.
calmly,
Warm,
controlled,
alive.
But his
The hum of the
eyes,
store slipped
his
into
eyes
the background.
were hellfire contained
All she could
in
feel
glass.
was him.
"I
His
believe
presence,
you,"
his
he
voice,
said. The way he
her
stood
breath
just a
hitched.
little too close.
Something inside
Moretti
her wavered,
broke the
almost
silence
broke.
first, but in a
"Listen,"
different way
he
this
said.
time. "I know this
A
might be
softer
weird,
way,
but if
it
you ever
doesn't
want to
matter,"
grab coffee or
she
something,
whispered.
I'd like
He
that."
called Mr.
No
Hale.
pressure.
"I'm going
Just
to
two
lose
people
my
who
job.
survived a rough
I
night
didn't
together.
even defend myself."
Her heart did a
I
stupid
just
little
froze.
flip.
"I'd
"You
like
did
that,"
everything right,"
she said.
Moretti
He
said,
pulled out his
stepping
phone
closer.
and handed it to her.
His voice was low.
"Put your number
steady,
in."
grounding. She typed it
You
in
stayed
with
calm.
trembling fingers.
You stayed
He glanced
professional.
at the screen. She shook her
Nodded.
head,
"I'll
tears
text
falling
you,"
again.
he said softly.
I didn't say
He
anything
walked
back.
toward
the door.
"I didn't
Lena
fight."
followed his silhouette
He
with her
tilted his
eyes
head
until the
slightly,
chime faded
eyes
behind
roaming
her
her
face. For the first
Not
time
in
in
judgment,
weeks,
but
her chest
understanding.
felt light.
Not fighting
At 10
back
o'clock,
isn't weakness,
she locked
he
the
said.
door.
Counted
Sometimes
the
it
drawer.
takes more strength
Everything
to stay
balanced
still
perfectly.
Her breath
She grabbed her
trembled.
coat.
The
stepped
cold
out
night
into
pressed
the cool
against her
night.
skin.
Her
But
phone
Moretti's
buzzed.
presence radiated
Unknown
a warmth
number.
that steadied her
Hey,
bones.
it's Jack
Then he
Moretti.
pulled out his phone.
"Thanks for tonight.
What are you doing?
Hope the rest of your
Lena
week
asked,
is kind to you."
voice fragile.
A smile bloomed
Fixing
across her
something.
face before she
He
could
found
stop
the
it.
store's number
She
and
typed
called.
back.
It
"You
rang
too."
3 times
And
before the
"Thank you
automated
for
system
everything."
answered.
Another
"Thank you
message
for calling
came
Maple
almost
Street
instantly.
Convenience Store.
"By the way,
My
beep
kid wants to
sounded.
know if you like
Moretti's
dinosaurs."
voice came through.
He says
deep and
it's very
controlled.
important.
"Hi."
Lena laughed
My name
aloud
is
in the
Jack
empty
Moretti.
parking lot. "I was
Tell him
inside
I
the
love
store
the ones
tonight
with the
around
long necks.
closing time.
He says
I
you have
witnessed
great
a customer
taste."
harass
Moretti
your employee.
replied.
Lena,
Her chest tightened.
she handled
in
the
something
situation
warm and
with
new.
professionalism
She got
and
home,
patience.
made tea.
The
and
customer
sat by the
was
window,
being deliberately
the city lights
cruel.
flickering like
"I'll
soft
give a full
sparks.
statement if
She
needed."
stared at her phone one
He
more
left
time.
his number.
Tuition
Hung
reminders
up.
still there.
Lena stared
Bills
at him,
still due.
stunned.
Life
You-
still messy.
You didn't
But
have
for
to
the
do
first
that.
time in a long
Moretti
time,
looked at her.
she
Something
didn't
soft,
feel alone in it.
almost dangerous
The next
in its
morning,
honesty.
sunlight
in his
streamed
eyes.
in.
Yes,
Her phone
he said.
buzzed.
I
Jack
did.
Moretti.
She didn't know
Coffee
what to
this
say.
weekend. Didn't know
Lena
how one
typed
man,
back
without
one stranger,
hesitation,
could shift
I'd
the
love
weight
that.
on her chest
And
so
as she
completely.
hit send,
You
one
should go
thought
home,
crossed her mind.
he said gently.
Last night
It's
hadn't
late.
broken her.
She nodded.
It had changed everything.
He walked beside her as she locked up, neither speaking. But the silence wasn't empty. It was charged. Alive. When they reached her car, she turned to him. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Moretti gave her a small, quiet smile. "You would have handled it without me," he said. She wasn't sure that was true. Not even close. But the warmth in his voice made her want to believe it. He walked to his own car, parked a few spaces away, opened the door, looked back one last time. "You're stronger than you think." Then he slid inside and drove away, tail lights disappearing into the night. Lena stood there long after he was gone, heart thudding unevenly. Something was shifting inside her, rearranging itself. Something she wasn't ready to name. The next afternoon, Lena sat in Mr. Hale's office, hands clenched tightly in her lap. She hadn't slept, couldn't sit still. The security footage review was happening today. Mr. Hale looked up from his computer. "I reviewed the footage from last night." Lena held her breath so tightly her lungs ached. "You did nothing wrong," he said simply. "The customer left the store. You locked up after. Everything was done by the book." Relief crashed through her so hard her eyes filled instantly. "And," Mr. Hale added, "I received a voicemail from a witness. Jack Moretti. His statement matches the footage exactly." Lena let out a shaky breath.